talk about you and God, and then open it up to some questions and answers in terms of this church and kind of some thoughts and ideas that I have. So I want to start off by, and this is just so weird because you guys know me. If you see me, I like to move. So I'm just like, I want to start off by talking about my personal spiritual heroes. You know, I've been blessed with just a natural curiosity of spiritual things. And so from the time I was very young, I was a fundamentalist because I knew that there was something stirring inside of me from the time I was a very young child. And as I continued to study it, I just kept getting more and more curious. By the time I was, 10 or 11, I had read the entire Bible, and that was beautiful, and I loved it. But I knew that there was, for me, and again, there's no judgment here, there's no right or wrong, but for me, there was more, and I knew that. And so, as I continued my exploration of the different forms of Christianity, all of a sudden, my mom walked in the door one night when I was about 16 years old, and I said, where'd you go? And she said, well, there's this new place in Livonia called Unity of Livonia. And I said, what's that? And she said, well, it's this church, and I think I'm going to start going to it. And I said, well, can I come? And to make a long story that's the beginning of my story, and that's the beginning of me. To me, what happened is when I walked in these doors, my spiritual journey exploded. Because Unity to me is a place where I've always felt like they allow us to play. So in other words, there's no rights, there's no wrongs, there's no goods, there's no bad. There's simply a matter or an exploration of your spirituality here. And that freedom was something that, to me, coming from my background, was incredibly freeing to me. And obviously, I've never left it. And as I continued to study and understand this amazing teacher that we had called Jesus Christ, and just so you know, yes, I still do have a personal relationship with Jesus Christ. Yes, it's changed over the years. Yes, it's gone from more of what I would call fundamental, which again, there's no judgments, none at all. But it was more of a fundamental understanding to where now I consider him a dear friend, a brother, a mentor, a teacher, a guide, and it's alive and well. And that has never stopped and continues to grow deeper and deeper and deeper in my life. And then as I began my studies, and again, I studied all kinds of stuff. I studied the different religions. I've studied different masters. I've studied different teachings, different courses, all kinds of stuff. I can't get enough of it. I just love it because to me, it's all light. It's just remembering who and what we are. And to see a glimpse of that and to understand it and to feel it is incredibly powerful to me because it reminds me of home. That's what I think about when I feel this thing inside, my divinity, that there's this fire inside each and every one of us that when it's ignited, you can't deny it. It's there. And my belief is that it's inside every single one of us. And that fire never, ever, ever goes dim. Ever. It's always there. Always. And so as I continued my studies, all of a sudden, when I started getting into Unity, one of the things I started to study were the Fillmores. These amazing, incredible human beings that, in my opinion, embodied what Jesus was talking about at such a level, in every single way, shape, or form. Because when Jesus said, you will do these and greater things, the Fillmores did it. They not only healed themselves physically, but then, once they healed themselves, they went out and they shared that light with the rest of the world and created this movement that we have now called Unity. It's an amazing story. You should read it sometime if you haven't. It's incredible. What they did, what they believed, the thousands and thousands and thousands of people that they healed was simply mesmerizing in terms of what they were able to do. And so, these are my heroes. And the reason I found as I studied them more and more and more, and what I wanted to kind of talk about a little this morning, were the things that I observed as I watched my superheroes, my spiritual superheroes, as well as others that have walked this path. Because again, understand, they weren't the only ones. Just so everybody knows, they were not the only ones. There are other ones out there that have done the same thing. Thank God, right? Thank God. I don't want to be looking at one person and going, holy cow, he's the only one that was able to do this. What are the odds, right? I like seeing more people out there doing it and understanding the indwelling light, that indwelling Christ, as Jesus called it, as the Myrtles called it. I love the fact that there's a lot of people out there that have figured it out. And they're all beautiful stories. And so when I contemplate, all right, well, what is it? What is it that these people had in common? The thing that comes to mind are the following, is number one, that we all came from the same place. Now, you can call it God, if you feel comfortable. You can call it source. You guys are going to hear me call it everything. Mother, Father, God, source, the divine, the sweet divine, whatever you want to call it. I don't get wrapped up into the name of it. It's energy. It's pure energy. It's pure love. And you can call it anything that you want. And trust me, God's not worried about what you're calling it. But we all come from the same place. All of us come from the same place. Having said that, we are made in God's, the divine's, likeness and image. So in other words, when I think about that, Unity calls it the omnis. It calls it omnipresent. It's everywhere. Omnipotent, which means omnipotent, which means all-knowing. And omniscient, excuse me. I screwed that up a little bit. That's all right. Omniscient, all-knowing. So the point is that God is always on. I like to say that. God's never off. It's like gravity. And so when I think about that, then I also think about that we're all one. We are all one. Regardless of what our faiths are, regardless of our skin color, regardless of our sex or sexual orientation, regardless of any of this, it doesn't matter. We are all, and truly, we are all one. The other thing that I notice is when I study these great masters is if we all come from the same place, if we're all made in its likeness and image, if we're all one, then the bottom line is this: we're never judged, ever. Think about that. We're never judged. Judgment is something that man, created. Man created it. God didn't. So we're never, ever, ever judged. The other thing that I want to talk about is the relationship. And if this relationship is something that is super important to you, if this relationship is something that means something to you, the two things that Jesus and the Fillmores were big advocates on were prayer and meditation. And if you think about prayer and meditation, the biggest thing that I would share with you this morning is just this idea that you can't do it wrong. There is no right, there is no wrong in the way that you pray and you meditate. It doesn't matter. But they did it. The Fillmores and Jesus did it big time. And they did it in so many different ways. They walked, they talked, they did it in groups, they did it by themselves, they did it through song, they did it through mindfulness, they did it through singing, they did it through painting, they did it through so many different ways. But they did it constantly. They both did it and they both talked about it a lot. That much I do know. The other thing that I would say is what they knew is because of who and what they were and where they came from, they knew that we could be healed. They knew that. And they knew the power of the divinity within them, and that could heal. That there wasn't anything so big out there that couldn't be healed. And so as a result, guess what? They healed. They healed themselves, certainly in the Fillmore's case. And then what they did is they turned around and they went and they shared that message, which is the final thing that I really see in terms of these great teachers and these great mentors, is that once they healed, then guess what? They went and they shared that story. They went and shared that in terms of what it looked like for them, how they understood it to the best of their ability, and then they went and shared it out of these four walls. Because ultimately, what that meant to them was freedom. And ultimately, that spark inside of us is about freedom. That's what we are. The limitless power that it can be. You know, when I think about God, I think about things like love and hope and faith and power, forgiveness, miracles, healing, acceptance, non-judgment, inclusion, or oneness. Those are the things that I think about when I think about those traits of the divine. Those are the things we all have access to, if that's what we want. Don't have to. Again, there's no judgment. None. There's no judgment here. None. But notice what's not in that list. Fear, hate, judgment, denial, separation. That's not here. It's not part of the equation. It's just simply not. And that is what drives me. And that is what I observed in terms of these great teachers and, quite frankly, the other teachers that I've studied. They have those qualities. I'm sure there's more. I'm sure there are. But those are the ones I came up with off the top of my head that ring true to me and what I feel in terms of what needs to be said and what we need to be reminded of day in and day out as we move forward. And so the point of this talk this morning, this little gathering, if you will, and what I wanted to share with you this morning is this idea of finding your sweet spot. Because in my opinion, my experience has been that we all have our own way of doing it. We all do. And so I just want you to think about that and ask yourself this question. What is your sweet spot? What does it look like? How do you take this thing called whatever you want to call it, energy, love, expression, expansion? How do you take that and how do you pull it in and now make it a part of what it is that you're doing on a day in and day out basis? And when I think about it, I just wanted to share mine, and then maybe we'll open it up for some other thoughts and ideas. But I'm going to tell you what my day looked like this morning. So my day this morning, what I did was I got up, and the first thing that I did was I meditated for about 20 minutes. And then what I did is I do about 5 minutes worth of visualization in terms of this. And let me tell you, you guys crushed this. So thanks. Anyways, visualization. And then I do about 5 minutes worth of gratitude, just because to me, gratitude is part of the divine, and it's a huge part of my practice. And then once I get done being kind of quiet, then I start doing a little bit of reading. And this year I've decided to go through, once again, one of my teachings is Course in Miracles. So Course in Miracles, I'm doing that again. I used to be really into it, but I've decided to fire that up again. And I spent some time in that, about 10 minutes or so. And then I'm a big fan of Paul Selig. Anybody know who Paul Selig is? Yeah, Paul Selig's amazing. I've got his new book. Spent about 5 minutes or so on that. And then, and this is a lot, you guys, but I'm into it a lot, right? So then I did something called emotional freedom technique, EFTs. Anybody know what EFTs are? It's really powerful stuff. It's really, really good. So I spent about a few minutes on that, about 10 minutes on that. So my practice, the way that I do it, again, there's no right or wrong. There's no judgment. It doesn't matter what yours looks like. But I'm just saying that you can expand it and make it as fun as you want it to be. Because this energy out there, I got news for you. It loves to have fun. God likes to have fun. Really, genuinely. Like, wow, really? Like, yes, really. And I'm telling you that the more fun that you make it, the more you interact with it, the more that you communicate with it, it will talk back to you. It will communicate back to you. And it'll do it in ways that will blow your mind if you do it. If you do it. Don't have to. You don't have to. But it'll play with you. So, having said that, I thought I'd open it up for a minute or two and have some other people share in terms of what their practices are, what their sweet spot looks like, if you guys are up for it. Any thoughts? Any ideas? Yeah.
So I really like YouTube, and there's so many amazing spiritual leaders on it.
Yep.
And so it's a great way for me to conk out at night
Hmm.
and just putting something on and
Come on in,
That's
everybody.
awesome. So you do it before you go to bed.
Take a good deep.
Yeah, I love, thank you for sharing, Beth. I believe in the power of our subconscious, and I believe in the power of going to bed and trying to be as peaceful as we can. So clearing it out like that and setting yourself up into a very pretty high vibration before you go to bed, that's really powerful. Very cool. Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else? Yes. Hey, Peggy.
I just started a practice that is really cool, and I'll just try to say that it's breathing through one side. You take a deep breath, and then you breathe through this side of your nose, and
Mm-hmm.
then out this way.
Yeah.
And I thought, what? And I did it for 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And then I do the cobra breath.
Yeah, yeah.
And I can't tell you how much better I feel to get started in the morning before I do the meditation and stuff. That's my new thing.
That's awesome. How many people here are into shamanic work? Raise your hands. Shamanic is body work. It's breath work. It's a fascinating field. I just love it. There's nothing about healing. There's nothing about getting back into our body. There's nothing about the different modalities that are out there, and they're all beautiful. The shamanic work, Leah and I, especially Leah's really getting into the breath work stuff. We have no idea of what's trapped inside of our bodies from an emotional standpoint. And by doing breath work, you'd be amazed at the stuff that can come up and that can heal when you're doing it. It's extremely powerful. So thank you for sharing that. But that is certainly something that we're starting to play with more and more, and just really, really enjoying that. So I'm sure you're going to occasionally hear us talk about that a little bit too. Yeah, a lot. A lot. That's great. Awesome. Anybody else?
I want to share one about you.
Oh.
Uh-oh. So I know that Mike, when life,
She was
when
raised
God
as a preacher's
decided
kid,
to
so
spin
she
some
must
of
have
our
started
greatest
early.
challenges, some of the
She's a
biggest
Grand Rapids
challenges
native. She graduated from Union High School, West Michigan, taught school around the state before starting to work at Kellogg Community College as a counselor.
just incredible at holding on, no matter how difficult things are, to his truth principles. And one of the ways I saw this manifest over the years is his journaling. So the way Mike journals when things are good, but also when things are rough, and his ability to hang on to the things that he knows that are true, that work for
So
him.
I invite
So
you
easy to
just
turn
to
away because things are tough is one of the greatest commitments I've seen to your sweet spot.
Mm.
And I think it says something to you guys, to what you have here now as your spiritual leader, the amount of commitment he has, to the conviction he has towards towards the commitment he makes. So to this church, and you've got him now for that.
Thanks, brother. Thank you. Thank you. Very cool. Appreciate that. Anybody else want to share? Anything. It could be simple. Yes. Oh, hey, Tony. Oh, Tony?
For me, it's music.
Mm.
It always is. I hear prayers in so many songs. They may be pop love songs, but I hear a prayer in it.
Mm.
So for me, my practice is singing. And so I sing my prayers.
Mm.
And that's breath work too.
Yes. Fillmore, Charles was a big, Charles loved to sing. When you read about his history, he loved to sing, and he would do that often. So that's awesome. I love music too. I can't sing. You do not want to hear me sing, but I love music. Love
Mike said
music.
he could teach anybody.
Yeah. That's great. Yeah. Melissa.
So I don't have anything formal that I do.
Yeah.
But laughter for me is my biggest sweet spot.
Yeah.
So
Love it.
anytime I can find joy in
Mhm.
any small thing, it just makes my whole day. The other day, my daughter was throwing a flour tortilla at my face for fun and videotaping it, and I just could
Yeah.
not stop laughing. And I thought, this is like the best meditation. This is total connection with the divine for
Mhm.
me. This feeling
Yeah, that's so healing. Yeah, there's been a million study. I'm so glad that you brought that up because I love to laugh and I enjoy it as well. I wish I did more of it. But I look at the healing properties. There's so many studies that are done about the healing properties of laughter. So I love that. Thank you for bringing that up. Yes, Lydia.
So I barely just got into eating.
Mhm.
I'm kind of a new person, I guess.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and I guess a way, like my sweet spot and my way to like release everything is again music and also writing poems. So like
Oh, awesome.
I always write poems and try to like hide a hidden message inside of it.
Yeah,
And I guess that's just my way of like releasing everything.
that's awesome. Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. It's beautiful. Poetry, writing. Yeah, I love it. I'm sorry. Bill. Oh, Joy. Okay. Go
Most
ahead.
of my life has been kind of a type A person,
Mhm.
and rushing from here to there and to-do list more than I can do. And I've gone through periods in my life where I've meditated a lot,
Mhm.
and then I get busy and I don't. But
Can't hear you, Bill.
I'm finding out more and more that as I slow down and meditate and discuss a challenge or problem with God, if I listen, there's an answer that comes out,
Mhm.
and it's amazing. It is hard to do that with everything else going on, but it sure helps when you're meditating, just at the same time, just to listen, see what comes out.
Beautiful. Listening. I love that. Yeah, we have a tendency to, we do a lot of talking and we don't do enough listening, right? So true. Joy?
Yeah, one of my ways where I can really connect is nature.
Love
And
it.
just getting out of the city, and whether it's walking in the woods or looking at a lake, is just instant peace and connection, and it's
Very cathartic. Leah and I have a favorite trail that we love to walk out in Saugatuck. And it is just stunningly beautiful. And when I enter it, I melt. Literally, I can just feel everything. It's like the universe shows up and says, "Hey, we'll take this, whatever it is. Not only will we take it, but we'll connect you and remind you what everything's all about." That's to me what nature does. And as the older I get, the more I appreciate it and the more I love it. So thank you for bringing that up. That's great. I know, Beth, you said you had one
I
more?
just was gonna say you had mentioned A Course in Miracles,
Mhm.
and on Wednesdays we have it right here.
Yep.
And it's a very welcoming group,
Mhm.
and I highly encourage anyone to join us.
Cool. I'll be there Wednesday.
Cool.
Yep. And
I just want to say I've been living alone for the last couple of years, and so I live in silence.
hmm,
My house is totally silent from the minute I get up until about 8 or 9 o'clock. I'll turn something on,
yeah.
but it's really cool because you can kind of hear the things that Spirit wants you to hear.
Mm.
And I believe that, we
So
all
I
have
invite
spirit
you
guides with
just to
Mhm.
get really
Mhm.
comfortable in your seat with your feet flat on the ground.
for help.
Mhm.
I'd suggest today that you have your hands on your lap with your palms up and open.
Looking for a particular dish.
This is a position of letting go, and it's a position of receiving.
Spirit guides, where?
So we're open.
And I immediately
Yeah.
had an answer. So
Yeah.
it's kind of fun.
That's awesome. Yeah, I always believe that if I can't use my divinity here on this physical planet, then what good is it? I've always believed that. So I love that story because it just reminds me that it's even the day-to-day stuff, right? It's the stuff that we're doing day in and day out and using that and tapping into it. Awesome. Anybody else? Yes.
I think it's the day to day, but also in the moment.
Yeah.
Remembering to not get ahead, not get behind, and just stay in the moment and
Oh.
take the moment in.
I love the power of now. Eckhart Tolle. Anybody know it? Powerful. That's what that reminds me of. That and mindfulness. We have studied mindfulness before, and I think it's an amazingly powerful practice too. Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Maggie? Oh,
We can't hear
okay.
that area.
Okay.
If you could repeat.
Yeah, yeah, I will. Very good. Maggie?
I have a power thing that I do in the morning because I sometimes suffer from depression.
Yeah.
So I stand up and I walk 3 feet away from my bed
Hmm.
and I go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. And what that little bit of thing does for me is it helps to energize me. So I'm not lying in bed and thinking about my challenges for that day.
Mhm.
I do it as soon as I wake up
Mm.
and I walk from my bed and I do that. Then I have a journal where I write 3 things that I'm grateful for, and I try not to write the same 3 things I wrote the day before. I
Yeah.
try to find something new. Then I send love to one person that I know is suffering in the world.
Yeah.
So if there's a person that's, if I have a conflict with anyone, I send them love. That's the first person that I send love to. But if I know somebody's having a challenge, an illness, or an emotional challenge, I take a few minutes and I just feel love for them
Mhm.
and send love to them.
Awesome.
So that's my overall routine.
Beautiful. Thank you. Yeah, it's gorgeous. I love it. I love it. I love the layers of it. Anybody else? Charles.
I find a lot of comfort and contemplation with a cat on my lap.
How many animal people do we have? Where's our animal people? Well,
And I woke up this morning and my fur buddy, who's been having a challenge with, one of the cat people know this one, the bubble that comes with the ear, and then you get a floppy ear after they
Yep.
take it out. Well, he had a little bubble on Friday. He's got a huge bubble this morning, and he wasn't even willing to eat, and I couldn't give him his medicine because, anyways, he still let me put him on my lap. And
yeah.
anyways, I would appreciate prayers for my Poe.
Prayers for Poe. So be it. Yeah, it's fun. We are huge dog people. And so we've got a couple of puppies that are often in my lap in my morning prayer and meditation. So I can totally relate to that and love it. And just, I wouldn't want it any other way. Awesome. So here's what I'd like to do is just share something with you that came to mind. And then what I wanted to do is talk about, which will wrap up the little talk piece of it. And then we can spend a few minutes talking about, what it's going to look like in the church and some thoughts and ideas that I have, and then we can kind of open it up to questions and answers. But I wrote this the other week, and it just came to me as I started thinking about things. And the title of it, it's called What If? And it starts off and it just says, what if today I decided to not play small and live my life instead with no limits, and dreamed of the difference I could make in this world, and took unbridled action to make that happen, and acted as if I had an army of angels behind me and I knew I could not fail? What if today I choose to know that I'm worthy of love and I no longer denied it? That I can let go of my past and easily forgive myself and others? To know that I am valued and that I matter and that I'm important? What if today I looked at anything that was holding me back in the past as a gift, and with a simple acknowledgement for the lesson, let it go as easy as I breathe? And then I went forward in my full power, fully awake, fully alive, and fully ready to serve. What if today I decided to live like we're all one? And instead of focusing on judgment and fear and separation, instead focused on acceptance, love, and tolerance. And to share that with as many people as I could. And then join others who are willing to do the same. You may say that I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. I hope someday you'll join us and the world will live as one. Care to join us? I hope so. I hope so. Thank you. Thank you. So I just want